Larry and Greg, Sports Talk Radio, 8:27 and 22 seconds Eastern Standard Time, Thursday, January 24th, 2013.
All right, here we go. Thank you for joining us. We're the Thursday War Room. My name's Larry B. I'm always joined each and every Thursday by Greg. How you doing, Greg?
How you doing?
Hey, listen, missed y'all for a week. I talked about it last week. I can't stand this, Greg. Week's too long. There's so much information, so much news going on. Every time I look at ESPN or listen to something on the radio, I feel like I got to get in front of the mic for something that's got to be talked about or discussed or argued about. I don't debate it. I don't know.
You know what? We've kicked around maybe doing another show. I think next week we probably have to do like a mini show, see how the people react, and maybe they like it.
Well, it probably work with all the news that's going on in and out, with all the sports that are happening right now, and then we got the Super Bowl coming on. We're not going to get into the Super Bowl tonight for you folks. There's just it's another week and a half away. You're probably hearing enough about it now. It drives me nuts hearing about it for 2 weeks. We are going to talk about last week's conference championship, so when we get into it, we're going to shoot some college basketball for all you fans out there and get into the NBA a bit. Before we get started, I want to thank you for joining us. Like I said, my name's Larry B. I'm always joined by Greg. We're going to cover some news real quick for you before we get into the show tonight. Greg, Junior Seau's back in the news. Guy's been passed now for a while. Family's talking about a wrongful death suit. Violent hits sustained from playing football. I mean, that's violent hits. It's a part of the game.
Yeah, well, here's what I'll say about that is, as it relates to the Seau family, I can understand how they would have a problem because the lawsuit that over 3,000 NFL players are already into are basically saying that the NFL has hidden data that could have helped prevented some of the things that are happening now. The Seau family is alleging that he didn't have one concussion recorded ever. And even with that, he has the disease that basically causes his brain to sort of freak out and alter personality and put him in a spot where people don't recognize him. So I understand where they're coming from. I think we all want to see a little bit more data. Unfortunately, the NFL, if you look at the past couple of things that have happened, they're not in the best PR light right now. So I think this is something that we can sit and wait on. Definitely newsworthy, but I think it's a little too early to get too deep into it. But it is happening. We need to know about it. And from there, I say we go forward.
How come the NFL never covered themselves? All these years, how come they never put a clause out there in these guys' contracts?
You know
or
what?
Like that
because nobody would sign it, and that's the power of the union. You have to remember, it wasn't. Nobody was worried about what happened to anybody 20 years later. They were worried about the now, and until the Players Association really came about, and that was mostly due to baseball. It was the owners ran everything. So you could have had a great career, but at the end of the day, if the owner didn't think so, you didn't get paid. So now we fast forward to now. You talk about clauses. I don't know if that really would have worked. Right now, if you look at the Player Association of old and the new, you have players right now saying that, yes, they will lie to get back on the field. They will not tell the truth about the injuries that they have just so they can secure their position and keep their contract value up. And that goes alternate to what the NFL is trying to do in terms of player safety.
Yeah.
We need you to tell us when you have a headache. We need you to tell us. Brandon Marshall was on the record last year saying, hey, my bell was wrong. I lied to the people, and I would do anything to get on the field. It was my contract year. This is for my family, generations to come. And that's what he did. And there's a list of players. I mean, it comes out every single week about, look at RG3. You don't think RG3 would lie? I'm not calling him a liar. But you don't think RG3 would lie or be less than truthful to get back on the field when you see what happens to
Well, he did.
Right. When you see what happens to Alex Smith,
Yep.
He had a concussion. He told the truth. Guess what?
Well,
Not only did he get kicked from his job, he
we
doesn't have
can't
an
use Alex Smith as an example because if guys look at him as an example, they think they're going to lose their job.
He went out based on a concussion.
Right.
And
Never played again.
Never played again. He's he has to be signed again for next. He has to be on the team at a certain date to get the roster bonus, which is a couple $1 million, and they're going to move him.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, he's not going to lose money. That'll get folded into his new contract. But that's what's happening. Talk to Drew Bledsoe. Same thing happened.
Yeah, with Tom Brady,
you know,
yeah.
The young guy looks like he's good, and guess what? We know you got your bell rung, but you know what? We're going to do our thing anyway.
Yeah, well, that's like we said, folks. Not a lot of information about that out right now. As it comes more to light, we'll keep you informed of it. That just come out this week. Moving on, the New Orleans Saints, Greg, this week announcing they're getting Sean Payton back. Goodell went ahead, released him early, let him go back to the team. Great for New Orleans. I think that had a little something to do with Goodell going back next week to the Mercedes Dome.
He didn't want to get his butt kicked. PR move, 1,000%.
Okay, but PR move, but it paid off for the Saints. I mean, not a little. The season's
How did it
over.
pay off?
Season's over, but he can get started.
Do you think?
Year.
Do you think Sean Payton is worth 4 games a year, 3 games?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so they make the playoffs, so they get more revenue, so the players get paid more. So Goodell basically screwed them.
Well, that was the only thing.
If he's gonna spend 10 days in New Orleans, Sean Payton better be free too.
Yeah,
I think that's all this is.
The PR move. We all know that. Moving on. How about Wes Walker's wife this week? Right after the AFC Championship. You know, Twitter has gotten. I think people have gotten ridiculous. We went from Facebook to Twitter, and the more we move on, the less we learn about these things and how to use them. Why would you put that about Ray Lewis? And if you haven't heard, folks, basically what she tweeted after the game and the team and the Patriots lost was that he is, let's play for him. Let's get him, Ray Lewis in the Super Bowl, this and that. He's a criminal. He killed somebody, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Why? If you're Wes Walker, what do you go home and tell your wife? Are you nuts?
Well, you tell her, 1, that's not the Belichick way. 2, you tell her, look what happened to Tom Brady's wife when she said that smack last year at the Super Bowl. And number 3, you're factually inaccurate. You know, and I really don't, with the greatness of Ray Lewis, and I understand he's had some troubled times in the past, let's really look at what happened. He was in a situation where he was around a double murder.
Right.
He didn't commit the murder. He had a girlfriend that, and again, we're just getting snippets here. He had a girlfriend that burned his clothes. He lied to the police, and basically what they said is, you know what, we're going to prosecute you for the murder unless you tell us what really happened. So they squeezed him. He rolled on the people that actually committed the murder. He got fined $250,000, and then he got drafted to the Ravens and never looked back. Right. And he's actually one of those athletes. Everybody gives him a bad name and everything like that, but he's been asked to speak to a lot of different teams on a lot of different levels, high school, middle school, college, and it just goes to show you that, some of the stuff that he went through that people are kind of throwing him under the bus now for whatever reason, probably because of publicity or that's the Super Bowl, the guy can make a difference.
Yes.
And he has made a difference. And
he changed his life around the last 17 years.
And don't get me wrong. I've been one of these people to say that, the idea of a hero, unless it's military or otherwise someone protecting you like your parents, doesn't exist. We don't know these people. We don't know them off the field. We don't know what they do. Mm-hmm. And we're silly to think that we actually can judge based on what they do in the field of play that we see every Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Thursday, whatever day, and say, hey, you know what, you're this quality of person because of that. But this guy has done more than what's been asked of him, from an ambassadorship to the NFL to just little kids and being positive and making a difference in some of the young players coming into the league life.
Look, look what he did with Rice, you know what I mean? He made Ray Rice what he is. Second of all, I mean, he did great with everything he did. Playing in the league, we never heard about him again after that incident. There was no trouble. He was with Baltimore through the good and the bad years.
Remember that? Remember when they went to the Super Bowl? Was it 2000 or 2001? Mm-hmm. And they were, and the same thing happened. They kept getting on about what happened back in, and he answered all the questions. If you actually ever go back and look at the interviews that he gave,
everything.
He answered everything candidly, and that was after the plea agreement. And Shannon Sharp said, you guys want to get on this guy, especially after they won, and everybody was talking about, get on him about, go at him with the same vigor that you did when he was accused of murder and celebrate his praise now. If you're going to do that, then do the reverse to be true.
Well, and it's unfortunately probably something that's always going to follow him. It's, when you're in sports, there's good and bad to everything. when people are looking at you, and it seems like they never get off the bat. If they find something to run with, they run and run and run. You know, you mess up, it's going to follow you.
Ultimately, it was a cheap shot.
Yeah.
She took it back.
And it was ridiculous.
Welker apologized. It's over. Next.
Can't help them things your wives do. All right, moving on. Big news last night. Number one, Duke in college basketball going down big to Miami.
They got punched in the face.
How? What happened? I mean, we're talking about a Duke team. We're talking about a team with players and their big star Plumlee is his name, averaging 17 points, 12 rebounds. I mean, the whole team's playing well. Now, this is what I thought about Duke earlier in the year before the conference play started. They're coming off a terrible tournament last year. They didn't play well. They got knocked out, and I thought that this was going to be their year. They were going to make a big run. Now, I know it doesn't matter losing early in the year. We're losing a game. Big deal. It's all about what happens in the tournament or winning your conference or whatever they want to do. But that was big last night. Did that show vulnerability in that team and their defense?
You know what? It's a relatively young team, except for Plumlee. And really, when you look at it, you know, everyone talks about how deep Duke's bench is. Fact of the matter is, off the bench, they didn't score more than 15 points.
Yep.
And they usually do a whole lot better than that. And then you look at the Hurricanes starters. Never mind that they're 5-0 in the ACC anyway. Mm-hmm. And this is don't get me wrong, this is a surprise team. And nobody in their right mind thought that they would beat Duke 90-63.
No.
But their starters scored a lot of points. And you know what? They are not as deep as on the bench that Duke is. But with their starters scoring what they did, that's the problem.
Well, Duke's got the best bench. In my opinion, they got the best bench in college basketball.
Well,
second of all, I mean...
Coach K needs to coach them up then.
Well, yeah, Coach K was having a fit last night. If you've seen him in the timeouts...
I've never seen him that red.
Ryan Kelly's one of their big stars, not playing right now. They just got Curry back. Curry didn't do well last night.
He scored 0.
Yeah, so, I mean, we got to get him back, get him into the flow. If you're Duke fans, you've been around this a long time, don't sweat it. When tournament time
Duke
comes...
Duke fans aren't even worried unless they're playing Florida State, who typically beats you, just saying.
You know, not being number one in the polls really doesn't matter, and especially this year. It's like having a target painted on your back. Every time the number one comes up, they get knocked down immediately. You know, like I told you earlier, a few weeks ago, second-ranked Michigan. I, right now, think that's the best offense in college basketball. The best offense. They can score from anywhere on the court. Their big men underneath play great. They got depth on the bench, and the transition portion of their basketball team, whether it's offense or defense, is really, really played well. The young kids are really stepping up. They're maturing. I think you're going to see that team go deep in the tournament, as you are Syracuse, a Louisville, a Florida, Butler. Butler got beat last night by LaSalle.
Yeah, and you know what? It just goes to show you, like, when they played Gonzaga, it was, and that's actually where they had the ESPN Game Day. When they played Gonzaga, they took them to the wire. But it's a talented team. But you know what? When you look at college basketball, I think the difference in between that and the NBA is college basketball is more based on emotion.
Yeah.
When you look at football teams, you sort of say the same thing. Can a team get up again next week for whoever? And I think this is a situation where, kind of like Atlanta when they won their first playoff game.
Yep.
That was their Super Bowl.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that Gonzaga was Butler's Super Bowl, but you know what? They probably got up for it, and they were a little flat, and that's what happened. And it doesn't mean LaSalle is even going to make the tournament or be great, but what it does say is that, any given day, when a team is in position and they have the right mindset, they're going to be able to get you. And the tough teams are the ones that can manage that emotion from going up and down, say even keel, and that's really what the pros are about, which is why some people don't really like it, because there's less enthusiasm, because it's more of a profession than it's anything else.
It's funny. We could sit here and talk about these top 10 schools, Greg, all day long. You got your Duke, Michigan, Kansas, Syracuse, Louisville. There's your top 5. Syracuse just coming off a big win against Louisville. Syracuse is playing great basketball right now. Their zone defense, these kids are running it excellent. One of the best groups of kids I've seen run Boeheim's zone defense in a long time. They're running it exactly the way he has it mapped out. Which, when you do that, it works no matter what they throw against them. Big win against Louisville. And I'll tell you right now, Louisville's another team that I think has a great offense, but here the last couple of weeks, they're struggling with missed shots. Missed shot after missed shot. I think they were like 5 for 22 or something crazy like that the other night. 5 for 23, whatever. That's you can't win games like that.
Well, we talked about this earlier. Now, with college basketball and even a little bit of pro football, it's about getting into the postseason, even NBA to an extent.
Yep.
It's not about we have to win every game. That's Kentucky's deal when they have a powerhouse squad. Nobody else. It used to be like that when players were staying 2 and 3 years back in the 90s, late 80s, when it was before the one and done. But now, it's let's get into the tournament. If we get a favorable seeding, okay. And if we happen to lose, like a Butler, if we happen to lose to LaSalle, okay. Because you know why? We play a good enough out-of-conference schedule season that we should, if we beat 50%, 65% of the teams that we're playing, we'll get in based on the strength of schedule and the quality of our wins. And this is why everybody wants to play the Big East. And this also has implications when we're talking about the conference realignment by everybody trying to be their own basketball conference.
Yeah.
That's that's a long way off. But
you talk about the Big East and the ACC. Syracuse going to ACC next year. To me, them are the two best conferences. And we talked earlier about mid-majors. Boy, there's some big teams coming out of mid-majors. Teams that are making...
I'm excited about Syracuse and Duke, or Syracuse and North Carolina, or Syracuse and Virginia, or Maryland twice a year, a home and home.
That's going to be huge.
Oh.
I mean, and both them conferences are great. But, you brought up something earlier I'm going to go back to. I just named off the top 10. You got Arizona, Indiana, Florida, Butler, Gonzaga. I can go down to the top 25 if you want me to. You brought up a name. We're not going to find any of them this year. Kentucky.
Right.
What's wrong with Kentucky? Young legs, still learning to play with each other. Fine, I get it. But, Calipari's big on going and getting these one-and-dones.
I'll tell you what. They're not missing the basketball talent, although it is not where it used to be in terms of the last 5 years of Kentucky recruiting. But what they're missing is the character part. They're missing the fact that everybody needs to get on the same page and pull for everybody else. That was the biggest thing about the Kentucky teams the past 3 years, is the fact that everybody was willing to sacrifice for everybody. Like the Bobby Knight Indiana teams when Isaiah was there. Everybody is sacrificing for everybody else. And I don't see that happening. I see too much individual play. I see too many people with their special haircuts and this and that and whatever. I mean, you had Gilchrist saying, hey, you know what? We need to get old boy in. Don't let me start. I'll get mine. Get him involved so he's activated, because when he's activated, we can play. You're not seeing that this year in Kentucky.
No.
And absence of that, guess what? You're not going to be a top 25 team. However, they still have half the season to pull together.
Yep.
We know the coach is great, and I'll tell you what, there's not going to be too many people signing up to play Kentucky come tournament time.
Well, I think they'll be all right. They'll get into the tournament. Are they going to make a big wave? No, I don't think so this year. I think they've fallen off a little. They'll come back around. We were in the top 8. One team I like to talk about is here in Florida. Billy Donovan and his Gators are playing lights out. Now, are they playing lights out because they're playing in the SEC? And the SEC, with Kentucky not playing well, is not a very difficult conference right now.
Missouri,
who was supposed to be good that they pounded. Okay, they got another big test, though, coming up here in a couple days. Ole Miss. Ole Miss is playing really well.
Florida is the best conditioned team in football and basketball in the SEC, period.
Yeah.
They are running people off the court. People can't stay with them, and they have individual play with players that understand their roles and can get their specific job done. And nobody's going to want to meet Florida. Nobody. Because you're not going to, the big thing with the Big East is that, we're big and strong and we'll wear you down. Well, you know what? They got Patrick Young there. They got some other cats that can kind of bang a little.
Yep.
Oh, well, you look at an old school Arkansas or a New Day Butler or Gonzaga. Oh, well, we're going to run you off the court. That ain't going to happen either. Well, they're going to be a tough team to deal with. Don't get me wrong. They still have some things to iron out in terms of bench play and making sure that that they take care of their business game planning wise. I think a little bit falls on the coaches expecting things from players that aren't happening. But overall, I'll tell you what, Florida's going to be a team that everybody's going to have to deal with come tournament time.
Oh, absolutely.
And nobody's going to want it. If they get less than a 4 seed in a particular bracket, our division of the bracket, I would be surprised.
Oh yeah, and don't say they could be a second seed easily, real easily. They're still got a big injury. They're missing Prather.
And there's a lot of games to play.
Yeah, Prather gets back. That's going to be really big for him. We were talking a while back about how good their offense is. They score over 70 points. You can count on Florida winning. That's a given.
And by the way, they smoked Georgia 64-47 tonight.
And there was the other topic I was going to bring up. We talk about their offense a lot. Amount of points they score. They get over 70, it's a win, this and that. What about their defense? They're holding people. I don't remember the last team other than Arizona, who they lost to, and Kansas State, who they lost to, who scored over 60 points on the Gators this year. They're holding people to 40 and 50 points night after night. I mean, they're 5-0 in the SEC. This is a tough ball club. Billy Donovan has these cats ready to rock and roll. And I'll tell you what, even with them 2 losses, you throw that team on the floor against anybody.
Which was to a number 8 Arizona and a surprise quality Kansas State team.
You know what? You play them 2 teams again, and I almost guarantee you this time of the year, because they played them earlier and out of conference play, it's a whole different score on that scoreboard. Because Florida has matured a lot.
Well, and also let's understand, Donovan's been here before. Oh. I mean, he has
17 years as a coach of the game.
And he has tournament experience. And what he's trying to do, much like Boeheim, much like Roy Williams over North Carolina and Krzyzewski at Duke, is they're not trying to win ball games. They're trying to get their teams in position to compete at a high level consistently, so when they go to the tournament, it's not a big deal to play a Florida, Arizona, Duke, Michigan State, any of them boys, Butler, Gonzaga. It's not a big deal. Yep. They can read the hype and not even pay attention to it because they're focused on their gameplay.
Absolutely. Folks, I'll tell you what, the tournament is always great. Greg, we're already at the end of January, come the end of next week. We're talking February, and we're into the tournament.
It's already
February's a short month. I mean, folks, get ready. The tournament's always great. It's going to be great this year. The chances for a mid-major to make the championship this year, it's not unheard of. I'll tell you right now, there's a couple out there that really could make some noise or upset some big teams.
I've been saying this, and we talked about this too. The mid-majors right now, what they're doing, football and basketball, is these TV contracts are getting so lucrative that it's dripping down to the second-tier level. And these guys don't have to go to a Michigan. I mean, back in the day, if you want to play ball, Michigan, UNLV, Duke, North Carolina, there are about 10 schools you could go to, and everything was great. Nowadays, with the TV contracts, they can go to a Cincinnati.
Stay closer to home.
They can go to a Butler. They can go to a Gonzaga. And they don't have to, and their parents, friends, and otherwise can watch them play. They don't have to be all stretched out and have to go to Arizona if they're from an Ohio. They can go to Cincinnati and still get that run.
And like we talked about the other day, you and I, with these mid-majors, they're coming along. More and more of them are coming out of the woodworks. They're getting better. They're getting their faces seen. Why is that? And I think it's what we came up with a few days ago. These kids in these mid-majors are sticking around for 4 and 5 years. They're playing together for a long time.
You're playing against a quality squad.
Yeah, and they're drafting better because of that. And, you get these kids that have played together for 4 and 5 years, and you they can do some damage. They can really make some noise. They're used to playing with each other. They know how it works, and they end up looking really good. All right, folks, so watch it. March Madness is just around the corner. It's going to be great this year. Even conference championships are always good. So keep your eyes on that for all you college basketball fans. Hey, Greg, we got to get into it. We got to, we talked about wanting to do the NBA tonight. Lakers disaster here. Lakers drama.
What, they're not doing good?
Now we're into this big Gasol and Howard trade and all this stuff. If they trade Gasol, here's what I'm going to say. If they trade Gasol on the 21st, that's going to be the biggest mistake they make. Why? Number one reason, Howard's going to leave at the end of the year. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And now you've lost both big men. Both of them. Howard scored nothing last night. Gasol scored what? 13 off the bench. Why aren't we using Gasol more? We're going to because Howard's out. He has another injury. He went out of the game last night. Overrated this year.
Look,
not in his career. I'm changing what I said and argued what you're about today.
Okay.
Overrated this year.
I think he's underrated this year.
No, not even close.
Well, I know you don't think that, but this is why I'm telling you. One, when he first got his back injury and got surgery, he wasn't even supposed to be back till halfway mark, after the All-Star break. That's when he was supposed to be back. So he comes back sooner than expected, and when you do that in L.A. and you lose, you get put on blast, which is exactly what happens. Now, we understand, and we saw what happened in Orlando, we understand that Dwight Howard does not like a lot of negative attention. He would just assume, say, hey, smile, show up, couple dunks, couple blocks, go home and be happy. I don't think he's the villain that everyone is putting him out to be, but I will agree with you for the simple fact that he needs to go. And right now, scoring 17 points, 12 rebounds, couple blocks, he's in a position where everyone knows he's going to get healthier. Again, maybe he's 80%. Some say 70, whatever it is. They need to get value for him now. If they can trade him to a Nets or a Dallas or figure something out, look, his salary is $19.5 million, and so is Pau Gasol.
Yep.
The travesty here is what's happening to Kobe Bryant's should-be NBA championship campaign run.
Yep.
And that's what's getting dissolved right now.
Well, and I'm going to tell you right now, you brought up the Nets because they talked about it earlier. Nets, Brooklyn Nets, if you're listening, I'm telling you right now, do not go get Dwight Howard, whether it's the 21st of February or the end of next year. No. You have a good thing going right now. You're playing lights out with your new coach. 12-2 since you brought him in. You got rid of Avery Johnson.
If you're the Nets, can you live with getting rid of Joe Johnson?
I wouldn't get rid of Joe Johnson.
I'm saying, if you're the Nets...
Why would you get rid of him?
If you're the Nets and you really want Dwight Howard, a healthy Dwight Howard...
You have to get rid of Joe Johnson.
You're not getting rid of Dan Rose.
No. Back to what I'm saying. Do not get rid of these guys. Do not bring Dwight Howard in. Remember, I'm not talking about his career. I'm talking about his numbers right now. I'm not even talking about his numbers. I'm talking about his play right now. I'm talking about Dwight Howard's play right now.
Right, but he's in a bad situation that's getting worse every day.
He couldn't have been put in a better situation. He wanted to go to Lakers. He wanted to go to a championship team. He wanted out of Orlando.
Let me ask you this. Who is Mike D'Antoni putting...
That was a huge mistake on the Lakers.
Still got to deal with it.
Right.
Who on the Lakers roster right now is Mike D'Antoni putting in a good spot offensively or defensively?
Nobody.
Right. Maybe Steve Nash, but he's over it. Right, but that's what I'm saying. You can't judge.
Howard not playing well is putting pressure on the rest of the team.
I'm not saying it's not, but you can't. Look, I'll agree with you. I'll agree with you from the standpoint of there's a extreme lack of effort in terms of on the defensive end, getting back in transition like we talked about, all that stuff. I understand that. But you can't judge him and his numbers. Kareem did that. You can't judge him and his numbers based on this year right now and say, oh, well, that's how he's going to be with the Nets. Don't get him. what I'm saying is, if he's put in a different situation, and hey, you know what? For as bad as he's playing right now, Stan Van Gundy, I'll tell you what, you made this cat look like a superstar.
Well, first of all,
you talk about a good coach that doesn't have a job.
Yeah, but you talked about D'Antoni. You can't get rid of him. You got to ride this out, because if you got rid of him right now, like you did Mike Brown, you're paying $55 million to people that aren't even in your organization. Second of all, with Dwight Howard, and I'm going to say this, and this is huge for teams that are looking or considering him by the trade deadline or even at the end of the year.
And listening to our podcast.
His transition defense
is terrible.
Is gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. Now, here's what I meant by when I said he's putting pressure on the other four guys. Basically, the Lakers are playing 4-on-5 every night. Gasol was hurt, so that's why they haven't been using him more. I think you're going to see him use Gasol a lot more now if he's healthy. Reason being is 4-on-5 is hard enough, but when everybody plans for you and they know they can go out to the perimeter and guard a Nash, guard a Kobe, stick with them guys, and there's nobody underneath that can play. They've already said guys that have been playing Howard underneath, he's not the Howard he used to be. It's obviously easier to play. They're shutting him down. He doesn't come to me like he wants the ball like he used to in Orlando. He doesn't come awake like he has to have the ball. He's not playing that way.
I hear you, but at the same time,
And if it is because he's injured, then get him out of there.
But it might be because he's injured. But at the same time, have you ever played basketball with a ball hog?
Who's a ball hog?
Kobe.
That he has to be the
I'm not saying he's not. But don't tell me that doesn't have. He's shot.
You don't think Kobe would use Howard more if he knew he could?
Kobe tries to get Dwight Howard involved early. He tries to get everybody involved early, and when it doesn't work out, he says, "Go screw and let me take over the game." And what I'm telling you is that doesn't fall under any plan D'Antoni or Steve Nash has, but that's what it is because it's Kobe's team. That being said, what they're running right now in L.A. is not what they ran in Phoenix. And they're not running that because, one, Steve Nash is a couple years off pace, and they don't have the same infrastructure in terms of players and skill set that they had in Phoenix. You saw why it was a disaster in New York. Why? Because it's the East. And the East expects certain things. And now that he's out in L.A., Phil Jackson ran the team like it was East. But because Jim Buss, the little one, got rid of everybody that had anything to do with Phil Jackson. One, he ain't coming back. Two, they already owe now with D'Antoni and coaches' contracts in the NBA are guaranteed. They're $22 million on the hook.
Yeah.
Right now. So even if they were to get a coach to come in for free, do you think that the GM would really miss Kupchak? Because Kupchak is just the Pied Piper playing what's coming down from up top.
Well, come the 21st, they have to get rid of somebody. I do not get rid of Gasol.
Clear $38 million. Put Gasol to New York.
What are you going to do at the end of this year when Howard leaves you? He's leaving.
That's why you trade him. That's where we agree. That's where we agree.
Yes.
Trade Howard. He has more value right now than he will ever have.
Then trade him now and keep Gasol, because you know what? Gasol's playing better right now anyways. Coming off the bench, put him in, use him. Maybe it turns the team around because now they know they can go underneath the Gasol, and they got a big man they can use. And whether he plays better by the numbers or not, he's going to try harder. And you know what? I'm telling you, if you keep Howard, he's going to have a good game, 4 bad games, mediocre game. He's going to end up hurt again. And there's your money sitting on the bench. So get rid of him. But I'm telling you right now, just because they've been talking about it, if PJ Carlesimo, if you take him, you're gonna screw up everything you're doing in Brooklyn right now, and you're doing a lot of good things. Your team is extremely impressive.
Do
not bring Howard to that team.
I do not agree.
Howard is a disease right now.
For the Lakers, yes. For the Nets, I don't.
How's he gonna play any different for the Nets?
Okay, well
you can't use him. He's not doing anything.
He's not doing anything in that system, which sucks. The system doesn't suck.
D'Antoni's system sucks, but what has Howard done to render saying in Kobe's mind, I get the ball to Howard, get the ball to Howard, get the ball. You can't do it with him. He's not making shots. And he's not stepping out.
We'll agree.
And how about the fact that he doesn't play defense?
He doesn't play the defense that everybody expected.
And Brooklyn's playing great defense while they're winning.
And proof of that is why his job was to clean up Steve Nash's mess. Because Steve Nash can't cover anybody in the league at the point guard spot.
Yep.
That's over 7 years in the league.
Yeah.
And so his job was to erase that.
Yep.
And now Kobe has to take Steve Nash's man. They got to hide Nash, which is damn near impossible, especially when you're talking about their small forward play, which has Metta World Peace stuck on the best defender. When they play Miami, Steve Nash can't even take Chalmers. Kobe's got to take Wade. Peace has LeBron, which is a mismatch. I mean, if they can even, never mind OKC, who they play OKC, who is Nash going to take?
Take his choice. It doesn't matter.
He's going to take a shower.
Yeah, because it ain't going to matter who he guards.
They can match up against a Dallas, or they got. Look, and proof of what you're saying and why you even brought this up is exactly this. They had a team meeting. We all know about the infamous players only team meetings. Everybody's calling people out, this and that, where you at, this and that, we need to do blah, blah, blah. And what's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be an infusion of confidence and, okay, well, we got everything that we need to get out. Now we can go to play.
Sure doesn't sound like that's how it happened.
They played against the Memphis Grizzlies the next night, and they got waxed by 13.
They came back in the third quarter and started to play well and looked like they had a little chemistry going and things were happening. But I'm telling you, I just think that you need a big guy underneath that can be steady for you the entire game.
But what's steady? I mean, are you talking?
Okay, do you think Howard? How many years do you think he's got left on them busted up, broken old bones that are falling apart?
Okay, look,
steady.
Look, you're a New York fan, right?
Yes.
You think Kurt Thomas? You need a Kurt Thomas? You need a Rasheed Wallace? I understand the Tyson Chandler.
I'd take Wallace right now. If I was LA.
Heck yeah, you would.
Of course.
But would you trade? Would you trade Howard for him?
Would I trade Howard? Yeah, why not?
You would trade. Okay. Would you trade?
Somebody I can depend on.
Would you trade Dwight Howard for Tyson Chandler?
Let me ask you a question. When your numbers are in the toilet, when you're hurt all the time, I believe you have a bad attitude. And, you have no defense. What's so hard about trading him? What is so hard, if you're sitting in the big chair like you are right now, for you to fathom trading him? Why can't that render in your mind?
Because you're on the brink. It's like trading Iverson. It's like trading Shaq. No. In this sense, you're not going to get the value back. You're not going to get the value back.
You only got him for a year anyways. Who cares? Dump him and move on. Move on in your season.
Dump him for what, though?
If I'm
what I'm saying is.
Well, wait a minute. Now I'm going to say something else about the Lakers. Let's start with Buss because the son. It starts right there.
Yeah,
and it's a disaster from there on. D'Antoni. Why D'Antoni? Why?
Ego.
Why? Did say, Phil, you didn't give me an answer right away? To hell with you?
No, because he doesn't want anything to do with Phil. Once the old man fell sick, this young cat says, hey, you know what? I want to put my own stamp on it.
Yeah, well, that's a good stamp. Real good stamp. You got a busted up big man.
That's why
he's not playing good. And you go get D'Antoni?
That's why he hoodwinked Phil Jackson, and he hired the trickless magician of Mike D'Antoni and fired Mike Brown. And don't get me wrong, Mike Brown wasn't getting it done. And I was telling everybody from the beginning, look, Mike Brown, your first player move, get rid of Mike Brown.
Yep.
I was saying it. So I get that. But I never, ever would have said, signed off on, endorsed, thought it was a good idea, asked anybody if they thought I was crazy to hire Mike D'Antoni. No defense. You're in the West. You have to defend Memphis. You have to. You don't have to play them.
OKC, San Antonio.
You don't have to play them. You have to defend them. You can't defend the Clippers. You can't defend. You can't defend Memphis. You're going to have trouble with Mavericks.
When was the last time you said that? When you talked about the LA Lakers, when was the last time you put them at the bottom of the list? When we just went through all them names, and they're at the bottom of it.
The last time, I'll tell you what, the last time Kobe Bish, and then they traded for Gasol.
And they tell you right now,
and then they won 2 more rings.
They don't do something quick, they're going to be there next year,
and
too.
They won 2 more rings. The last time is when they won 2 rings. Kobe Bish said, "Get me out of here. Let me go. If you guys aren't going to make," and he went right to Mitch Kupchak. Mitch Kupchak went to the old bus, and that's what happened.
I'm telling you, follow the drama, folks, in the Lakers, because it's going to go on all year. This team doesn't go 500. This team does not go 500.
They're 17 and 25. I'll tell you what's going to be real tough.
Follow it.
Real tough.
This Howard, long as Howard's with L.A., they're not going any further than where they're at now. He's a broken up, fading problem. He wanted out of Orlando because he knew he was at the end of his rope and he wanted to win a championship. He knew he had nothing left in the tank. He wanted to go to a team where he could win and win easy and make himself look good. He thought he had it with L.A.
I disagree with you in the sense that he went and got surgery early, and he came back early, and he's getting judged based on that.
Whose fault is that?
His fault and Laker management fault.
And you know how you're going to be judged in this league as any professional athlete.
I don't disagree with you.
Lakers, dump him. You need to dump him, and you need to move on. And the next thing you got to work on is D'Antoni.
We don't disagree. We the only thing we disagree about is why he sucks right now. But we both agree you need to dump him.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get rid of Gasol in February because I got a feeling down the stretch Gasol's going to play good for you.
No one's going to take his contract.
No, not right now. All right, moving on to a little more NBA news. Carmelo Anthony just filed an appeal to recoup the lost wages from his 1-game suspension after trying to confront Kevin Garnett, which the two boys are playing again tonight on TNT. It was an 8 o'clock game. It's going on right now. But listen, he's trying to recoup it. He was suspended. I guess we have to understand it and deal with it. It is a rule. Whatever. He knew better. He got suspended.
It was a legitimate suspension based on what David Stern has preached and what he will not allow to happen after the Indiana fiasco.
Well, he's after $176,000, which is 1/10 of his salary for this year. I don't think he's going to get it back if it's a legitimate suspension. I can't see how he's going to get it back. So, Carmelo, if that's the case, I think we kiss it goodbye, move on. The team's playing real well. We're playoff bound. You're playoff bound. Let me rephrase this. I can't be talking we and all that on the radio. Your team's playoff bound. You're still in the hunt for Player of the Year, MVP of the Year. So get it together, keep it together, and let's move on.
Look, the only thing I'll say about New York, and I care how Boston does, but I've always grown up a Laker fan. New York's number 2 in the standings. They're above Brooklyn, which is red hot right now. Brooklyn last 12 games they're 10-2. I mean they're really playing at a high clip. If New York just keeps doing what they're doing, they'll be fine. This whole hiccup with Carmelo and all that, it's what it is. It's Stern flexing his muscles. Once the predecessor, and we need to figure out who that is after Stern leaves after next year. I'm sure it'll be a little different thing. Stern's, from the old school, I get it, but he's a little heavy-handed with some of the shots that he thinks people take at him, which they don't. So this is just a small blip in the road. Carmelo is not going to get his money back, in my estimation.
No.
But what he will,
he will get. They go to them players' unions and they get all kinds of stuff.
You know what he will get? Buckets.
Oh, he's always.
He's going to get buckets next game he's at. So I'm not even worried about Carmelo. He signed a $60 million extension once he left Denver and forced his way to New York. So he's fine. No big deal.
You brought up a minute ago, Greg, a team that's doing really well. The Brooklyn Nets were a half a game behind New York.
I guess Williams isn't so tired anymore.
What is Carlissimo doing that Avery wasn't able to do? And then
he got off their back.
Well, they have a roster. And they have a bench.
Dude, they have a squad, man.
I mean,
they've always had
Humphreys,
a squad.
Johnson, Evans, Wallace, Williams. I mean, God, we can keep going on. These cats are all playing well. And, they are, every night goes by, every game we watch, they're getting better by the moment. By the moment.
You know what? I don't know if they're getting better as much as it is They have a game plan, and Avery Johnson is very technical. He used to play for the Spurs. He was part of the David Robinson '95 championship on the short year. He's at a spot where he is very technical. He wants everybody to be accountable. It's assignment basketball. And the problem with that is when you got players that just want to play and can play loose and free. Look, Brook Lopez is not an X's and O guy. If you look at the way Jason Williams played in Arizona and where he's playing now, the boy can play. Even when he was over in Denver. He was Utah, rather. He was a great player. You got Jerry Stackhouse, and I think, everyone's Jerry Stackhouse. Well, old man, he's been in the league 18, 19, 20 years, whatever. He's came in with Rasheed Wallace from North Carolina. But he's teaching these young cats how to play, and I think once you get Avery Johnson out of the way, he's able to mold them a little bit. Now, is he putting up the numbers that he used to? No, doesn't need to. He's one of the mold cats that molds the young ones, kind of like what Garnett is doing with Thad Mello and Sullinger from Mello from Syracuse and Sullinger from Ohio State. You have Brook Lopez. Chris
Humphreys. We got to start there. Joe Johnson. Come on.
Well, they're nice parts, but I think what Carlissimo does is gives everybody a role that they can accurately fill, and then from that they play better ball.
Yes. Well, let's talk about them coming up tomorrow night. They're at Memphis. As hot as they are, they beat them. Memphis
is a wrecking crew, man.
Yeah, I know they are.
I don't see anybody on that team that can stop Zach. I don't see any. Let me amend that. I don't see anybody in the league that can stop Zach Randolph from getting 20 and 10.
No, but this team is playing good defense.
With that soft butter jumper from the corner.
Is playing great transition basketball. Great.
Yeah.
They get back on defense so quick, and they're down the court and scoring. That's why they're putting up the numbers they're putting up on offense. They got a Houston and Orlando, and then next Wednesday night, they're at home against Miami. Big game next Wednesday night, folks, on the 30th.
But it's a big game for Brooklyn. It ain't a big game for Miami. Miami don't care about that game.
They better start caring quick.
For what? That's another game on their schedule, man.
Okay, they better start caring quick.
You think they're going to be...
They better start caring quick.
You think they're going to be Miami?
You know what the way you're saying this to me, because I know how you talk and the way you do it, what you're saying to me is, can they beat Miami in a series? I didn't say that. Can they beat them flat out and again? Well, now let me run this by you. Can they beat them? I believe so, and here's my reason for it. Brooklyn is 2-2 with the Knicks this year. The Knicks played Miami twice, beat them both times by a total of 40 points. You're saying, do you think Miami's worried about Brooklyn? I think they should be worried. If they're not, they're going to leave New York with a loss. That's fact. Can Brooklyn beat Miami in a series? No, I don't think so. And I know I would not bet on that. But I'll tell you right now, Brooklyn's a scary team right now.
So you
Brooklyn
agree.
to me is as scary as Memphis or Oklahoma City is right now.
So you agree that this game is basically meaningless for the Miami Heat?
How's it meaningless? They don't care if they lose a game?
If they know they can beat them in a series, why do they care?
Then why are we playing? Why don't we just go to the playoffs right now?
Because you have to play every game.
Right. So if they go in there and they're not ready, they're going to lose.
They're going to play ball. They're going to play ball because they are ball
So
players.
when they lose, you're going to make the excuse they didn't care, they just went in there?
No.
No.
I'm going to say they tried, failed, and got beat if Brooklyn beats them. But what I'll also say is, guess what? That's not going to wear on their psyche. Like if Brooklyn loses to Miami, Brooklyn's going to think about that. If Miami loses, they're not thinking about that. They're already off to the next game. They're waiting for April, May, and June.
Well,
and I understand what you're saying, and you're right from the standpoint of, yes, Brooklyn is coming in there. They mean business. They're on a hot streak. They want to make a statement. All I'm saying is that game means more to Brooklyn than it does Miami.
Well,
win or lose.
Win or lose. Okay. I made my point. I'm clear about it. We were talking about Memphis. Memphis is in the news this week with Cleveland in a big 4-person deal. the biggest reason for it was they had to get off their salary cap a little. Memphis did, and they got $6 million off their cap. They're going to fall below the luxury tax threshold. After sending they sent 3 guys. They sent Ellington, Shelby, and Spite.
Who?
Ellington, Shelby, and Spite. Right. But also a future first-round pick is who they sent to Cleveland. Okay? The problem they have is they're still paying Gay, Rudolph, and Gasol $50 million.
Marc Gasol.
Right, Marc Gasol. And they have to pay a $4 million luxury tax this year.
Yeah.
So they're headed in the right direction. I don't think losing them 3 guys hurts Memphis by any means. But now the other night they went in and played L.A., which typically we wouldn't talk this way about L.A., but we are this year. They went to L.A. with 10 guys. Okay, and beat L.A. They handled them. Says a lot for Memphis.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think that they're top 3 in the West? Do you think that they are making this move? Because it seems kind of weird to make this move right now, unless you're in position where you're going to try to get a mid-level exception and try to bring another veteran player on.
Well, they did. They brought John Lauer on. They brought him on.
No. Well, I'm talking about post trade. Who they acquired to reduce their cap is basically so they can reduce their cap, but you have to reduce your cap in order to get the mid-level exception for however many years. So I'm looking at this and I'm almost saying, I think these Cats are trying to position themselves to get one more player.
Absolutely.
Maybe like a Monte Ellis from Milwaukee, who, he's happy, but he's also sharing the ball a little too much.
Yep.
Maybe they get a guard out of name it, Dragovic from Phoenix. Maybe they look at pushing towards a Rubio, because they don't mind being over the cap as long as they're winning. They're a mid-market team, but I really see them putting this in a position where they're going to try to make a move to go for a championship run. Because when you look at the Memphis Grizzlies, they're really good.
They need another player, though. They're not a championship run team right now.
They're really good 1 through 7. And Tony Allen, he don't make a lot, but I'll tell you what, he plays like the Dickens. But they need.
They're another Brooklyn Nets right now. They'll beat you during the week, okay, and send you home. But they can't beat you in a series. They can't beat the Heat in a series.
They can't beat you on that old school NBC Sunday 3:30 game.
Well, there you go, folks. We just broke down the NBA a little bit. What's been going on? You can follow this Laker drama. It's going to carry on all year. Really,
right now, do the Lakers make the playoffs?
No, they don't even go 500 this year. They don't even go 500, and if they keep using Kobe Bryant the way they're using him, then kiss him goodbye. He's going to end up injured, and you're not going to have him. And then what kind of injury is it? Can he come back next year for his final year? There's a lot to be talked about there. That's a whole other topic. I feel really bad for Kobe. Kobe wants another win. He's selling out for another championship.
Completely.
And young Buss, maybe young Buss don't like him. That's what I gather from this. You don't put the people around him in the pieces he needs. Why do you go get old legs?
Kobe is owed more.
Yes, Kobe's owed more. He's done everything for that team. He has given them everything since the day he walked in there. And I don't care what anybody says about Shaquille O'Neal when he was there. It was Kobe. It's always been Kobe's team, and it always will be. But you keep using him the way you're using him.
You're gonna bleed him dry.
That's right. So listen, get rid of Howard. Do yourself a favor. Move on. And Brooklyn, do not take him. I'm telling you, you'll bring an infection to your team that will cause everything to go down. See, we get nothing accomplished.
Get a 3-team trade. Get rid of Joe Johnson. Bring in another.
Get rid of Joe Johnson, you're really in trouble.
Get rid of Joe Johnson, bring in Dwight Howard, get a third piece from another team.
This is why nothing on this show gets accomplished. I'm trying to tell the Nets what they need to do and how to go about it, and you're screaming in their other ear. I'm telling you, you do not bring Howard to that team. Bottom line. Far as
I think
Carmelo.
you're too emotional about this.
Well, I mean, I'm tired of this guy. He is so overrated this year. I'm so sick
This
of
year,
hearing
you know,
about
I
it.
will give you this year, but that's it, though.
Okay, he's going downhill.
He's in the wrong system on a bad back with a team that is led by Kobe, who's taken more shots than anybody else in the league. You cannot tell
Where
me.
does he go that he plays well? And
Dallas?
No. How's he going to play well with a struggling Dallas? Because they keep feeding him the ball and he keeps missing shots? Okay, you keep feeding him the ball and he gets wore out and hurt again. Now you're out without him.
Less pressure?
Ah.
What?
Yes, less pressure.
Look.
But the pressure ain't the problem. He's putting the pressure on himself by not performing well.
I'm saying he's a good guy, but I'm also saying that he is not mentally strong. He is not. He's not.
He's not physically strong right now either, for that matter.
Well, he's got a bum shoulder.
And a bum knee. He's got bad knees. He's got a bad back. You want to go get him? Hey, listen, owners of the NBA, jot this all down on paper before you think about going and getting him. And then if you do, please explain to me why, because I'd really like to hear it. I'd really like to know how you're going to spend $19 million or more for a guy with all this busted up stuff.
19.5, actually.
Listen, I'll take half, and I limp. All right, I got no problem with it. But look, hey, moving on to Carmelo, I don't think he wins his appeal. We already talked about that. He's out that money. You know, Memphis looking good. The Heat are looking good. They always do. Oklahoma lost last night. I don't think it's a big deal. You know, they're fine. They'll be there.
Oklahoma's one of those teams where, you know, I mean, the way Durant's playing, nobody can guard him. He's the impossible cover.
You ever notice win or lose, we don't hear nothing about San Antonio?
Yeah.
They're just a quiet team that wins a ton of games. We don't hear about them until the
for a
playoffs.
couple games, and now he's bad.
All right. Let's, Greg, let's go ahead. And we've been talking basketball. Let's get into last week's NFL conference
We haven't
championship
even talked
games.
about NFL yet?
No, we got into.
Golly.
You know, I had to school you in NBA news for a little bit. You know,
I appreciate the lesson. I'll review my notes and get back to you next week.
No, but listen, last week we brought it up that there was big conference championship games that got overshadowed by the Te'o incident. You know, and here we are, and I'm going to give ESPN and everybody like that a little bit of credit. They're not killing us with Super Bowl talk right now. There's little bits here and there, but it's not been constant and steady like we're used to.
I think they've learned their lesson, and I think they know in order. And let's be honest, with TV, with ESPN, with NBC, Fox, they're out to get ratings so they can get advertisers to pay more money for what it is. And I think what they're learning is, you know, especially with social media, it exhausts the situation.
Oh, it kills it.
Even more, no matter what situation it is. With Twitter, Facebook, everybody wants to be involved, this and that. I think now you'll see a last push maybe a week from now, maybe drumming up to it. You'll see, you know, some special pieces and this and that, but you're not going to see the onslaught that you used to see, I'll say 2 years ago and, you know, 5 years from that.
Yep.
You know, you're not going to see that anymore.
Yep, absolutely. No, I agree with you. Like we said, moving on to the NFL, folks, we want to talk about last week's games, just give you a quick oversight on them, what we saw, what we were thinking about. And I've been waiting all day for this. I've been waiting to say this all day. I'm so happy, folks. I'm so excited. And I can't wait to tell all you New England Patriot fans, Tom Brady.
Oh, here we go.
He ought to wear a diaper, in my opinion. Fine. $10,000 by the league for his slides.
Too much.
Too much. They gave him the minimum they could give him because he's the golden child, and they knew everybody was yelling fine, so they fined him. They go, oh, here, Tom, we got to give you something.
They
we
succumbed
hate to do it to you.
And I'll agree with you from the standpoint of putting that knee up like you're Ty Cobb sliding in the home.
Trying to kick him.
Trying to spike somebody like you're in the Bad News Bears and the girl's the catcher. I get it. He should have been fined at least $50,000, $10,000 fine.
Where'd our class act go? Where'd our class act go?
I mean, the same.
Ed Reed's the class act.
Look at
Ed Reed's comments.
The class act is the same class act that Belichick used not to talk to CBS when he loses again.
Yeah, Belichick's a crybaby. I don't care what anybody says. He's a sore loser.
Look, he's a great coach. He's a great coach. He's a great motivator. Tom Brady's an excellent quarterback. But at the same,
you say great coach. Great coach. How do you explain great? What is great to you? Continuing to win constantly? Not regular season games. Win the big game.
Great to me, from a coaching standpoint, is putting your players in a position to succeed against the competition. And I think that he did that. If you look at the drop passes that happened with Welker, Hernandez, Lloyd.
I understand that.
Right.
But he's been figured out over the years, Greg.
I'm not saying he. I'm not saying
games.
Look,
he don't change his game plan.
I'm not saying he hasn't been, but there's also a reason why he scored and why his offense scored over 34 points a game, and the turnover differential was astronomical between number 1 and number 2.
I agree. I give you that.
Putting your players and your team in the best possible.
I give you that.
Okay.
I'm talking about postseason. Can't get it done in the postseason. Who cares if you win one playoff game?
I'm not going to lie to you.
They have him figured out.
It does concern me. It does concern me that since I'm a New England fan, it does concern me that since Spygate, they have not won a darn thing when it comes down to the show. They lost to the Giants twice. Mm-hmm. They got taken out by the Jets. They should have been taken out by the Ravens last year.
Yeah,
I mean, there's and don't get me wrong, there are holes.
But what's the problem? Because here's the point I want to make you. They improved. No, they didn't improve. They developed a running game that they never had. Now, not with one, but 2 backs. 2. By the end of this season, they developed a defense that could stop people that they never had. They were always, we'll just outscore your team. What happened when you are as great as you are?
Talib went out. Talib is the corner. What did you? We were watching that game. What did you say?
Yeah.
Anquan Bolden, Florida State. Anquan Bolden.
Yes. I've been saying it for weeks.
Went berserk.
Yeah.
Right? And that was Talib's assignment. And what did the Ravens do? They threw for 176 yards and threw when Flacco went back to throw, 80% of the time they were in a 3-receiver set, which means that you can't zone cover that.
Okay.
You got to go man based on how they're playing and how Ray Rice was running.
Now, back to what I asked you. I asked you what's wrong with the Patriots. You told me about their defense, which I just said. I know Talib.
No, I also told you about drop balls.
After halftime, they couldn't put a team that scores over 34 points a game can't put 1 point. When Brady and Belichick are frustrated, they cannot get anything accomplished.
And the part that sucks most...
And Brady better quit hollering at his players.
I'll tell you what the part that sucks most from a New England fan standpoint is you didn't see him get rattled like when he played the New York Giants and they had 4 up front giving him pressure, making him, let him have fits. He made mistakes from looking at what he saw and then threw the ball in the wrong spot. That's the more concerning thing for the New England fan. It's not that he threw interceptions, but he threw interceptions where there wasn't really a whole lot of pressure. Now, you got to credit the Ravens' defense for being in position, for getting the balls up. 2 of those were real pop-ups. 2 interceptions might could have been 3. You got to give them credit. At the same time, you also have to put responsibility on the receivers for not pulling that in. But maybe the throws weren't where they should be. Everybody was talking about the Super Bowl last year and where he, quote, missed Welker. And maybe Welker, when Gillette or whatever his girl's name is, said, he can't catch 2. You know what? Maybe it was a bad throw. Maybe that throw was a little too high. And where, he catches that 9 times out of 10. Guess what? Didn't happen this year.
I agree with you because in them big games, you got to make them big catches.
And it keeps not happening.
You saw Bolden making them big catches. They got to make them. But, it brings me back to this. How much longer? First and foremost, the Patriots are with...
You talking about Brady's exit? How's it going to end up?
No, but here's why New England, for the last how many years, has always been in the playoffs and always won their division. They play in a terrible division. A Jets team that can't beat their practice squad. A Miami team that's been horrible.
This 2 seasons ago, but
that was horrible. And a Buffalo team that had a little run there, going 6-0. Then they give Fitzpatrick a contract, and they went right back to where they started.
No one trusts Buffalo.
Now here's the thing. Next year will be a little different, I believe, for them. Patriots should win their division because it's easy. But you better watch out for Miami.
It's easy?
Yeah, it's easy. Their division?
Well, let me ask you this. Since you bring up Miami, do you think that their coach deserves potentially, especially with all the flack that he was getting at the beginning of the season, mention for maybe Coach of the Year?
No, I don't. And just in the sense that...
Honorable mention.
Okay, honorable mention. There's a lot of good coaches. You know what? He brought along a young quarterback really, really well.
Tannehill?
Tannehill.
And he also got rid of all the good players. Which gives them a lot of cap space.
Yeah, but you know what? Look how they played. Every game, they started off rough. And then every game throughout the year, yes, Greg, they weren't beating a lot of teams. And yes, they didn't make the playoffs or even they had a shot at the end, but there was too many variables. That's not a legitimate shot. But he brought them along, Greg, a little bit every week. It wasn't a monster leap. He didn't stress them out or put too much on their shoulders. Every week they improved a little bit in some portion or aspect of the game. Well, and you know what? That builds confidence in the team and that young quarterback, and it builds confidence and looking forward to next year.
Well, I'll tell you what. We sat down and we talked about the up and coming quarterbacks. And maybe we do that again next week because I'd like to see our opinions as they flourish based on what's been happening, through the playoffs. But I'll guarantee you this: we'll have Tannehill. Maybe he's number 5, but he's in the top 5 of the rookie quarterbacks.
Well, I'll tell you right now,
a legendary year for quarterbacks.
I think Miami can make a wild card next year.
I think Miami's going to give people fits. They went 7-9 this year. A lot of the games that they lost were very close. And they're a pain in the ass to play because they play hard-nosed defense.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Eventually it's going to get to where New England don't have a skate division and just walk through it. New England could be a horrible 8-8 team, and they still make the playoffs and win their division because the division's that bad. And I think that's starting to affect the New England team. They get into these games against these bigger teams that play tough teams all year, and look what happens to them. I think Belichick better start changing his scheme around, get away from his same old that he does. You got a good running game.
His scheme every week. They learn a new playbook every week, and they lost Gronkowski.
Well, then you better work on your offensive line because Brady can't move around, and he's getting hit all the time by these good teams. And when he's getting hit or he's stressed out, he can't get the ball down the field. And you know what? A lot of them drop passes may have been thrown a little harder than he usually does. Not as hard, too high.
You know what I think it was? I think a lot of those drop passes happened when, late in the game when Baltimore, put yet another hat on those receivers.
Oh, absolutely. How'd you like to get hit by them?
They were putting the black and blue on them, dog.
Absolutely.
And they were hurting them early and good.
I tell you what, New England fans, I hate to say it, but this team is aging. Not their defense. Their defense is in good shape. Their offense.
The only reason why anybody
their line is old. And they better do something to start protecting Brady. And they're going to trade Walker for those of you fans that are wondering about it.
They're not. Well, they may trade Welker, but if they do, he ain't going to do anything anywhere else.
No, because he won't get used like he is in New England.
Nope.
But I'll tell you right now, Edelman can replace him just fine.
So and Woodhead.
And Woodhead, who went from a running back to slot receiver. So they're fine there. But I'll tell you what, I just think since Spygate, they can't win the big game.
I don't like to say that, but until it's different, I have to agree because, and don't get me wrong, New England fans, I'll tell you what, I'm born and raised in Amherst, New Hampshire, and it pains me to say it, but golly, until they win a game of magnitude, i.e. Super Bowl, after Spygate, it's a question mark. And I hate to say it.
Baltimore beat New England both times they played them this year. In Week 3, they beat them 20.
Flacco has outplayed Brady the last 3 times he's played him. He outplayed Peyton Manning.
Absolutely.
Flacco is on a mission. I'm not saying that Baltimore has turned over to an offensive team with Ray Lewis getting 44 tackles in the last 3 postseason games. But what I am saying is the flame's going to flicker out pretty damn soon. But what Flacco's doing right now, if his receivers can do what they need to do, it's going to be good stuff.
Well, let me ask you this. When the postseason started, did we think we were going to see a Harbaugh Super Bowl?
No.
No, I don't think anybody did.
I did not.
I probably gave...
And I thought less at the end of the season when they went, what, 1-4?
Oh, yeah.
And
Baltimore lost.
And New York Giants backdoored into.
But you know, with that in mind, Baltimore played a tough schedule. When you start playing Cincinnati's twice and Pittsburgh's twice, and and teams like that, you're playing a tough schedule.
Boo.
You know, it ain't like
everybody.
Wait a minute. Don't go everybody, because New England playing a Buffalo twice, a Miami twice, a Jets twice. They're 6 wins without even trying.
Right.
Not even trying.
This year. Was it different when the Jets went to the AFC Championship twice? Yeah, it was.
I'm not bad mouthing New England. All I'm saying is they're putting a better team together, and they're not playing as well. They're not winning like.
I'll give you that.
I mean, you're talking about a team that never had a running game.
Right.
And now they got a
not
great
a consistent one since Corey Dillon.
So, anyway, we talked about the Harbaughs. No, I thought San Fran had the bigger shot at going to the Super Bowl than I did Baltimore. But I'll tell you what, Baltimore won their first game, turned around and went to Denver and won a nail-biter, which was huge, and then had to turn around and play in New England. The last 2 games they played, I didn't think they could win, and they put them both off. They were no more, in my opinion, they won their division, they were no more than a wild card slipping in to meet, and you had a Cincinnati and a Pittsburgh. They got in, they won their division. I thought that's as far as they were going. Hey, look what they've done. And what have we seen with teams that have pulled this kind of deal off in playoffs where they've won games they shouldn't have won? They're wound up, they're playing crazy. Emotion wins big games. We talked about the Ravens. One thing about the Ravens, they better keep Jim Caldwell at the end of this year and not get rid of him. He's turned that offense around.
You heard that? You heard that quote by Ken Cameron? Even the former offensive coordinator, he said that move was brilliant.
Yeah,
he said it made all the players he's the one that got fired.
Wait a minute though, but look at Joe Flacco last year. Let's just go last year. Look at Joe Flacco last year, his performance and his play, and look at the Baltimore Ravens. They weren't scoring, Greg.
He made all the right plays when he had to.
They were averaging 31 points a game this year.
But the players did not do what they needed to do to convert. That's why I say Joe Flacco has put the ball. Joe Flacco has the biggest arm in the league.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
He can air it out. He's got a hose. He's got a rope. He's got whatever thing you want to call it. He's got it on his shoulder, and he can throw the touch pass if he needs to, teardrop it down.
Yep.
Players got to make plays.
Hey, I tell you, a guy for the Ravens that been making plays in the playoffs. If you've been watching, it ain't been stellar and standout. But Ray Lewis is going to add 14 more postseason tackles to his record. And, that's huge.
18 more than anybody else in the postseason, 188 straight
and he could go
defensive plays.
You know what?
He didn't take a play off.
He could go nuts in the Super Bowl because now he knows when he walks out of that tunnel, this is it. There's no more maybe next week.
Absolutely it.
This is done. So that he could be, and Ed Reed also. Them two could be fun watching. They are going to let it. They're going to let it all hang out. Greg, with TV rights and ratings and everything, they said the AFC and the NFC games are the most watched programs since Super Bowl 46. The AFC had CBS and drew 47.7 million viewers. The NFC, who's with Fox, drew 42 million viewers. That's huge.
It is huge, but you know what? I'm not surprised, and it's going to keep going up because what I think happens nowadays is that it's not just, it used to be that you looked into the paper to see what was going on with the game. Now people have all the smartphones, they have the tablets, the iPad, the Galaxy this, the Note, the whatever, and what's happening is people are getting informed on the fly. So when you're talking about engagement and putting people in front of what the game is, social media is helping with that. Because it's not just, it used to be just an event that you went to, you watched, if you didn't want to see the game, you went to the party anyway and, focus more on the chips than the game. Now, it's everybody going, everybody's on, not everybody, but a lot of people are on Twitter, a lot of people are on Facebook, and that makes the game to them a little more accessible and a little more confident from the standpoint that they have other people that they know or they follow watching the game, so they feel more engaged that way.
Right.
And what an interesting stat that I would like to hear is, we know they got the big numbers, but did they get the big numbers from beginning to end, or did the numbers grow during the second, third quarter, and then the fourth quarter? Like, I think those are great numbers, but I think they're talking about the hype. Like, at one certain instance in time, we had X amount of viewers. I can't believe that started at the beginning. I think that grew to it. And I think social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, for that matter.
People are watching
talking,
games on their
texting,
phone.
All that.
That's huge. Being able to just walk through the mall and watch your favorite team play on your iPhone or your Android or whatever. Well, before I move off, folks, next week we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. We'll get more in depth into it. We'll talk about Harbaugh versus Harbaugh, all that. Before I get off the NFL, Greg, Jerry Jones, he just can't help himself. He told you
everybody's going to be uncomfortable.
Well, he brings in Bill Callahan and now comes out, and it's just a rumor right now. He says it's just a rumor.
Ain't no rumor
that he's going to take over the play calling instead of Garrett because he's a new offensive coordinator for Dallas.
You talking about the Bill Callahan from the Raiders?
Yes. Who threw
with all that stuff in the news?
Oh, Tim Brown! Come on. First of all,
let me ask you this. You always ask me the questions. Let me ask you this: do you believe, even though they got embarrassed, Tim Brown and Jerry Rice, do you believe that it's sour grapes, or do you believe that? And now, I don't believe that any NFL professional would sabotage any Super Bowl. But do you think that Rice and Tim Brown are saying, hey, you know what? We know you changed the game plan, and that sabotages. Do you think it's just sour grapes, or do you think that's a legitimate gripe?
I think sour grapes, just in the sense that
Tim Brown. You don't think they have enough?
Just in the sense that
let me hear you out.
Maybe from that standpoint, when that game plan was changed, they all stood up and said, what in the world are we doing? What happened? Why? We've been getting ready for this for 2 weeks. Now you're walking in the night before the game, changing everything. Now you bring in confusion, wonder, everything else. No, sour grapes. And Brown and Rice got called on it, and they know it. First of all, Tim Brown, you're a future Hall of Famer. You were a great football player. Jerry Rice, you are a Hall of Famer. You were the best. The best. Why are you sticking it out there to get it chopped off? Why? What brought this up?
Right, but you know what? Tim Brown's been saying, and for those who don't know, essentially what happened is Tim Brown got interviewed yet again, for what reason I don't know, and he basically said that Bill Callahan sabotaged the play calling for the Super Bowl 36 hours before. It was reported that Barrett Robbins, who's had a litany of trials and tribulations with alcohol, went to Tijuana and had a good night the night before the Super Bowl, and maybe it was that projected them. He was an All-Pro center. They had the number one offense against Tampa Bay, which was probably the fastest defense that we've ever seen up to that point. I think we've seen defenses faster than that after that. But all that being said, really came down to the fact that they were saying that he sabotaged the Super Bowl to spite the owner, Al Davis. And I find that
for his friend John Gruden.
And I find that, one, hard to believe that any NFL professional would do that. At the same time, when I'm talking about and thinking about impeccable NFL player careers, I got to put Jerry Rice at the top. And Tim Brown is not far off. If you told me Marvin Harrison, okay, I understand he's had some trouble.
There's where I'm going. There's my next point. We're not talking about two pissed off.
Jerry Rice has everything. He doesn't need it. Jerry Rice doesn't need this.
Half-witted problem guys around the NFL. We're talking about two very intelligent guys that played at the highest level.
Supposed to be the class of the NFL.
They are the class of the NFL. This is a surprise. I tell you what, I can't tell you how I feel about it right now. I'm a little bit appalled that they did it. They got called on it. They made themselves look bad, whether they think so or not. And I bet they're both scratching their head now and starting to wonder why they even did it. When it first came out and hit the news, I stood there and went, wow, there's going to be a lot to follow this. They have proof. Why? They had no proof. It was an opinion.
I honestly thought it was going to be a 5-minute story.
I thought this was going to go on forever with tons of proof, other players coming out, everything.
I wasn't going to hear another thing about, but you were absolutely right, and I was absolutely wrong. This thing has snowballed.
No. I mean, there's nothing to it. There's no ground for them to stand on. They stuck it out and got it chopped off and made themselves look bad. They'll recoup from it. It'll be forgotten. It's not that big of a story. But why? I'm still wondering why. Mad because you lost? Big deal.
Tim Brown has been saying that. Tim Brown said that he's been saying this for 10 years.
You know, Jerry Rice, with all the Super Bowls you got, why did you need to go? Tim Brown, maybe. Why did you need to involve yourself in this?
I have no idea.
I want to call it idiotic, but I respect both guys. I just got done telling you how intelligent they are. So, whatever, the heck with it. Greg, look, lot talking. We talked about a lot of things tonight. College basketball, NBA. We had a little news, the NFL. Next week, like I told y'all before, we're going to get into the Super Bowl. We're going to stay with the NBA because there's a ton going on in it. The NBA is right in full swing right now. Everything's happening. Every week goes by, folks. College basketball is getting closer and closer to conference play and March Madness. We're going to keep you informed of what's going on.
And we definitely have our agenda, but you know what? If there's something that you want to listen to specifically, you know, we're multi-versatile. I mean, we can go to anything. You know, we're going to talk about tennis a little bit, maybe some MMA, maybe even some boxing. But we need to hear from you guys what you guys want to listen to. Because that's really what's important, because we're nothing without our listeners.
No, absolutely not. And for those of you that listen to us on an every week basis, thank you so much. We'll take all your questions and comments. Pretty soon our webpage, Twitter, email, and Facebook will all be up. You can reach us on that. For now, for those of you that have been sending questions to my Facebook, continue to do that. If you don't have my Facebook, my name is Larry Benware. Feel free to go ahead and friend me. I'll accept it. You can send me any question. Hey, also on our YouTube page, you can scroll down to the bottom. There's a comment section. You can send it in there. Hey, Greg, I want to finish off real quick before we close out tonight with the NBA because it's driving me nuts. You got me wound up about it. I'm trying to explain to you reasons why. And in my opinion, you're going back on Howard's career and not what's going on right now. Careers come to an end, you know that.
Do they?
Injuries, age, everything plays a factor.
This is sticking in your craw, ain't it?
No, but listen to me. When I tell you, Lakers, you trade Howard come the 21st.
I agree with you.
You dump him.
I don't agree with the same reasons why.
What happens when you keep a car too long that you've been fixing? They lose value.
Look,
and all of a sudden, when something major happens to it and you can't get nothing for it.
Let's be honest with what Dwight Howard was coming into the Lakers. He was an experiment.
Yes.
Okay? And the experiment failed. They're 17-25. They're not going to make the playoffs. Even if they happen to make the playoffs, they're going to have to face the Clippers, the Spurs, or Oklahoma City.
Yep.
In which case they will get bounced out in the first round. You know, they need to trade Dwight Howard for the explicit, simple reason that he has more value now. Because once February 21st comes, he's junk.
Well,
he is $19 million walking, $19.5 million walking out of the cap. But if you trade him, you can get value for him.
You hang on to him too long, and you know what's going to happen? Somebody's going to pick him up.
Now.
You're going to lose out, Lakers, on the money side of it.
You're going to be like Orlando.
And you know what? A team that picks him up is going to have a guy that's probably not going to play the midseason.
You're going to be Orlando.
Yeah. Or you might not, trade him. Nets, I said it before, don't take him. Don't deal on this. It's a bad situation.
Doing Nets.
Hey, folks, college basketball, we're going to have a new number one come Tuesday. there's a lot more basketball between now and Monday, so your top 5 could change big time. We've seen it over and over already this year. We'll keep you informed of what's going on with that. I told you Michigan's a big offensive team. They look really good. Keep your eye on them. Don't forget about them Orangemen. They're right there, too. Hey, let's close this out, Greg. What do you think?
I just got a couple little things. Earlier we were talking about the Australian Open. For the men's, we have Djokovic against the winner of Roger Federer and Andy Murray. Andy Murray won at Wimbledon for the Olympics. Djokovic is on a tear. Roger Federer. For the women's, we had Serena Williams upset by Stevens, who's a teenager who got upset by somebody else. So now for the women's draw, for the finals, we have Azarenka against Nia Lee. Lee actually was pretty good, and she made the Wimbledon finals, Wimbledon semifinals the last two years. So for those tennis fans, that's what you need to look at. Another bit of news is we have Mayweather fighting on May 4th. He typically fights on around Cinco de Mayo. His last notable fight was against De La Hoya, who he destroyed. There's some MMA stuff going on, but maybe we'll get to that later. Again, just little quick hits, names that you hear a lot of times, but we just want to put it to you so that you don't have to go anywhere else for the information.
Yeah, if you're an MMA fan or you're a boxing fan, shoot it at us. We're all for it.
Against John Jones should be a great fight. Should have happened last year, didn't.
Good luck beating that cat. Jones is bad to the bone. Let me shoot it out there too. He's awesome.
Larry and I will get into that next week because I'm not sure he knows what he's talking
about.
Let
me shoot it at you too. First of all, I told you this before, and MMA has proven it time and time again. There's no martial artist or boxer that can beat an outstanding wrestler in that octagon. So with that in mind,
I disagree with you.
Except for the one-punch wonders. I'm going to tell you this. John Jones is a New York State champion wrestler. So is Rashad Evans. But John Jones is. John Jones is going to be the champion for a long time in the light heavyweight division.
Well, everybody says that. But, again, that's something Larry and I will get into a little bit more. Because Larry doesn't like to be told when he's wrong.
Hey, folks, we really enjoyed doing this show. I told you I can't stand a week off. It kills me. We may put together a little mock show next week for you just to get some news out of the way before we really get into the Super Bowl next week. That's going to tie up a lot of Week 12 show. So if we throw something out, we'll let you know. I'll put it on Facebook so you're aware of it. But listen, thanks for listening to us tonight. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week. We'll have a lot of information, a lot of Super Bowl talk for you. Listen, this is Larry B. and Greg signing off tonight. Have yourself a great evening.
All right, folks.